for Team Osmo last night. I've got lineup study pulled up. We're going to dig into that in a couple seconds once we get started. But welcome to the NBA Strategy Show, presented by Super Draft. Tuesday, January 28th, what was supposed to be a 9-game slate is now an 8-game slate. The Lakers-Clippers game has been postponed. Should be pretty easy to make that one up, given both teams are in LA. But we still have 8 games, which is kind of weird for a Tuesday. You and I don't normally do slates this big, so I'm excited to talk some basketball. Adam Scher, what's going on?
How's it going? Excited to move on from whatever the hell last night was.
You know, it wasn't great.
Yeah.
Really problematic. I have lineup study pulled up for Draftkings for yesterday because we need to take a look at it. The highest owned player in the $15 fadeaway on Draftkings was Isaiah Hartenstein, 61.8% owned. Alex had him in 149 of 150 lineups. He played 6 minutes. Meanwhile, Chris Clemens, 24% owned. Alex had him in 69% of his lineups. Chris Clemens played 7 minutes. Neither of those two things went well.
No, they did not. The thing is, obviously there was a chance of that happening, but even with Hartenstein not starting, if you go back and look at games that Capella's missed this year, the last 2 where he came off the bench, he still played 24 and 21 minutes. He had another game where he played 31 off the bench. So there was still plenty of reason to think, especially against a bigger Utah team, that he was going to get run. I was talking to you about it earlier. Like, even if you were taking a couple of minutes away, the big thing was, you had Thabo Sefolosha on a back-to-back who is barely in the rotation anyway. If I had to guess between 26 and 0 minutes for Thabo, and those are my only 2 options, I would have taken 0 every time.
Yeah.
Like, it was just a really, really weird rotation on top of it being a really weird starting lineup that I don't think anybody expected.
No, I did not expect PJ Tucker at the 5 against Rudy Gobert. That felt different to me. I don't get the sense that they're going to have trouble guarding PJ Tucker in the corner and allowing Rudy Gobert to stay in the paint, but that's exactly what they did, and they won.
Yeah, I'll say that's easily. The other thing is, I wasn't too worried about it either, because I was just like, okay, well, when this fails miserably, they'll switch to something else. And then they just won the game easily. So obviously they just kept doing what they were doing the entire game.
Was the final line like 13 or something like that?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, that's like... I don't even have like a lesson to take away from this. I projected Hartenstein and Clemens for let's just say 48 minutes total. I don't remember what it is, but somewhere in that neighborhood. They played 13.
Right.
Like, that's not... There is... Alex played 149 of 150. He had Chris Clemens in 2/3 of his lineups. At some point in time, it's just like, okay, well... Frazier? Was that his name? Frazier?
Yeah, Michael Frazier played 20 minutes.
Right, of course he did.
Right. Yeah, I don't think there's really an actionable lesson. I think it's just a reminder that, we talk a lot about, for a lot of guys, it doesn't matter if they're starting or not. It's just a reminder that you do, I guess, take on a little bit more risk anytime you're playing a bench guy that isn't like Lou Williams or something, because they're not guaranteed, to get on the floor. But that's kind of just that's obvious anyway. It's just, it's going to happen a couple times this season, and I don't think there's a whole lot you can do differently.
Grammar in YouTube chat says, referencing me on Live Before Lock, you did say it's possible that Houston just plays 7 guys and Hartenstein and Clemens never see the floor. Yeah, I mean,
right.
I was like, yeah, we could see 5 of these guys all play 40 minutes. That's possible to me. But then there's still like a buttload of minutes that someone's got to play. I didn't think it would ever be Frazier.
Basically with those guys coming off the bench, I was kind of holding my breath until they got into the game. And I was like, okay, at least they're not going to DNP. And then they both just sat the entire second half. But so there was clearly more risk when you're talking about especially non-core players coming off the bench. Coaches can do things to just say, yeah, no, you're just not really playing here. But when those guys are 3K and they're good per minute producers, it really just comes down to weighing the odds of, does this go like it has pretty much every other time we've had this situation?
Yeah.
Or do they do something totally different? And I think that
they did something totally different.
I mean, they obviously did something totally different, but the odds were still in the favor that they were going to get enough minutes at least to be good at 3K.
Yeah. I mean, this is the craziest part of all of this is that 3 weeks ago they had this exact same scenario and Chris Clemens played 34 minutes or something ridiculous.
To me, that's not even the crazy part. It's that Hartenstein didn't even get the start after, like, the last time he started for Capella, he had the best game of his career.
Yeah.
Played insanely well. And D'Antoni's just like, and it's not like this was a necessary matchup. Like, you obviously could have gone bigger against Utah. D'Antoni was just like, yeah, no, screw you.
Yeah, that's... I'm at a loss for words for most of it. Like, it was just ridiculous. I'm also firmly planted on Alex Baker's hill. He had 2.7% Jakob Poeltl at 49.5% ownership. That also did not go well if you were trying to get a value play correctly. He went over 3.
That was weird to me. I didn't get that one.
So you get to a limit where this is sort of how I assumed that mine was coming through. I had the 3 Rockets guys, Hartenstein, Rivers, Clemens, ahead of Poeltl. I gave Poeltl 24 minutes. I had no idea what they were like. That was the one where the minutes I wasn't sure of. Whether it was
I gave him 30.
Right, which I like is perfectly reasonable to me. I don't think that is weird at all. Metu played, which I had no idea if that was going to happen. They could have dusted off Damari Carroll pre-trade deadline to try to be like, look, he's not like hurt. If anybody wants to give a second for a wing. Rudy Gay could have easily played 28 minutes and they knocked that down. Like, Trey Lyles moves to the 5. I wasn't comfortable enough going there because I just have no idea what San Antonio is going to do. That turned out to be not the correct method. So 0 for 3 on value plays.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I only got to like 60% Poeltl was because he was only center eligible, whereas Hartenstein you could play at power forward and center.
Yeah.
And center was really deep. I obviously didn't anticipate Poeltl outscoring in raw points Drummond and Towns. So I thought the opportunity cost there was really high. But he was obviously someone too where, and I think it's another point too of, looking at multiple people and how they approached it. Like the people that I normally look at is I compare my exposures to Alex and I compare them to Petty Theft. Petty had 100%, Alex had 2%. I came in at 57. So it was pretty clear that there were multiple ways to attack that one.
Yeah, that's just not fun, man. Not fun at all. I guess, in a way, both of those games went... Like, both teams zigged instead of zagging. Like, the Rockets started PJ Tucker in a spot where you would never expect to start a non-center against Rudy Gobert. Meanwhile, Jakob Poeltl...
I don't even think it was that crazy, because like PJ Tucker is strong as shit. That's not Gobert.
I mean, I don't think it's like crazy. It's untraditional.
It was weird.
Yeah. It's not even just the start, but like he doesn't see the floor type thing is weird to me. And then the sort of the same scenario in the San Antonio game. The Bulls are not exactly deep in quality at center, and nobody has ever doubted like the skill set of Jakob Poeltl. He's just sort of like not great for today's game, kind of a relic of the past, but talented, smart. Of course he would eat up a team that doesn't have like legitimate centers out there. Both of those things seem really obvious on the surface. And then, it could have just as easily been the opposite direction. I hate it. I hate it so much. I feel like such a dum-dum. I really do. It's just one of those slates, man. Glad Reggie Jackson cooled off after a little bit. He was
that was going to put an end to my night real quick. It's just one of those where you have to remind yourself that it's a season-long thing and you're going to have nights where you're just completely wrong, and you can't you can't go into future slates like doubting what you think is going to happen or what you feel comfortable with. Like you can't, whatever the decision point tonight ends up being, where you have to really decide on somebody. You can't go in and be like, oh man, like I should hedge this a little bit because I got burned last night. I was wrong last night.
Right.
Like you just kind of have to live with it and move on. You're going to be right. You're going to be wrong. And at the end of the year, hopefully you've made some money.
Winning lineup last night. Quimo Stealth.
Did not have Jakob Poeltl somehow.
One shot, one bullet. Doncic, Gordon, House. What did House finish with? 40. He played 46 minutes.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's another. He was 18% owned on DraftKings. I think 2%. Alex had like 1%.
Oh man, 46 minutes for real.
That's actually, if I had to go back and change one thing about how I approached the Rockets, once we got the starting lineup, I wish I had bumped House's minutes a little bit, but I just think that my no, not to 46, but above 30.
Yeah.
Same. But I think my pre-lock process is just so much better than my late swap that I try and avoid late swapping for marginal spots like that.
Right.
Obviously, I wish that I had, but
46 minutes. Why even sub him out?
Right. That's what I was thinking. I was like, what happened in those 2 minutes?
Yeah. Had to fart and was nervous. Didn't want to shit himself on the court. I don't know. Yeah. So Luka, Gordon, House, Bielitsa, Trey Lyles, Austin Rivers, Andrew Wiggins, Buddy Hield. Whew.
Yeah, I did not see the Kings stuff coming from Bielitsa. Oh, that was another one. The Kings went small.
Buddy Hield played 38 minutes and didn't start.
Yeah.
Did that go to OT? Is that the game that went to OT?
That went to OT, yeah. Okay. So he played 33 in regulation. Okay. But yeah, that was another one. The Kings went small against Towns and Minnesota. So Bielitsa went nuts at center. Yeah. Hield got more minutes.
Well, yeah, 42 real points for Buddy Hield last night. 9 of 14 from 3. Hilarious. Absolutely. How many? So Trey Lyles played 26 minutes. That's interesting. Rivers was exactly what you would expect. Wiggins went crazy.
Yep. Was overweight on him.
9 boards, 8 assists. Amazing what happens.
Yeah, he just kind of did his thing, and Towns was just like, yeah, whatever. I don't need to play this one.
Yeah.
I don't think Towns recorded a stat in the final 10 minutes of actual basketball time he was on the floor.
What a day, man. What a day. How bad did it get for the 150 maxers? 68% Hartenstein, 67% Poeltl, 55% Andre Drummond. Okay.
Yeah, I felt good about. I basically flipped the Fields exposure on Drummond and Towns, and so I was feeling really good about having 55% Towns after 50% on Drummond busted, and didn't matter.
What a slate, guys! What a slate! Look, it just goes to show you, there's a lot of variance in this, and it's not even just the outcome variance, but simply just how many minutes will this person be on the floor, which is, just as tough. I mean, even more difficult to sort of plot out. If you're wrong there, it doesn't matter how accurate your rates are for a player. When Clemens comes in 20 minutes under what you expect, and Hartenstein comes in 20 minutes under what you expect, doesn't matter how you had those guys projected.
I think one other interesting thing from last night, just kind of as an overall takeaway, and it goes back to one of the recent videos that Brick made, but it's easy to look at a slate of last night and be like, man, if I just played really contrarian, I would have had a good night, because of how popular Hartenstein was and Clemens and stuff like that. But, even last night where Hartenstein was my highest owned player, Clemens was, I think, my second highest owned player, I lost 60%, which obviously isn't good. But I've had slates this year where I do play more contrarian and I lose 90, 95%. And over the course of a year, that actually makes a really, really big difference as far as your profitability goes and how often you need to win. So I think it's actually a slate where you can kind of remind yourself, even though it went really poorly, you still kind of get a higher floor also by not being too crazy.
I just want to put this stupid slate to bed.
It's always exciting to move on to the next slate, and then you open it up, and the first game is the Knicks and the Hornets.
Would you rather your guys play poorly or you be wrong about the playing time like last night?
play poorly for sure.
I agree.
It's more. I mean, it's like two different feelings. So when they play poorly, especially if it's in like a lineup that's really good, except for that guy, it's really really frustrating. But you at least still feel good about how you played, like your
Right.
process. When you're just completely wrong, it's easier for me to just look at the night and not be frustrated and just be like, whatever, like I lost.
Yeah.
But it also obviously makes, if I have a week full of me being wrong versus a week full of me being right and the guys that I played just shooting poorly, I'm gonna feel a lot better about myself with the if it's just the guy shooting poorly.
I completely agree. I don't think that there's anything I could do to change last night to any reasonable degree. Um,
Right. Yeah. If I go back and say like, what could I have done differently? It all just points to believe something completely different than you believed going into the slate.
yep. Yeah, it would be maybe at 7:15 or whatever time that lineup comes out. I'm getting 2 less minutes to Hartenstein and 2 more minutes to Daniel House or something,
Right.
which is going to
Right.
change
Which would have gotten me
largely
from like
nothing.
97% to 80% Hartenstein.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
but even that, like, I'm not even like kicking myself for that because like I'd said before, like they're on marginal spots like that, which is what I thought it was. Um, I just still feel more confident in the lineups that I made with my full drawn out process before lock than by trying to get off of this minimum salary guy when there's no like clear forward pivots in that price range, and it's just going to redo the entire build of my rosters post lock.
I said it to Spags as soon as we locked. Today is going to be a day where I get an absolute beating because I love the way that my exposures look. And sure enough, took that beating. Guys, perfect opportunity since everybody should be in here now. Please hit that like button. 410 viewers, only 40 likes. I'm not a big fan of that ratio, so let's get those thumbs up. Yeah, I said it. And now we need to talk a little bit about Super Draft. Yesterday, I did an office hours for about an hour and 15 minutes, breaking down some thought process on how to play at Super Draft. If you are not a premium sub at awesemo.com, I highly recommend you subscribe so you can go check that video out. We also did Live Before Lock for an extra 30 minutes up until Super Draft's lock. They were able to fill their main contest, which we were really happy to see. I assume that I would have taken a beating on Super Draft given the exposure to Chris Clemens and Isaiah Hartenstein. So yesterday was just going to be a big fat L clear across the board.
That was a real nice contest today.
Yeah, very, very nice. Which they tipped us off to last night while we were on the show. But so Super Draft is a little bit different. You don't have to deal with any salary. Every player has a multiplier. In particular for today, someone looks pretty tasty. That gentleman is Zion Williamson with a 2x multiplier. He's going to be playing additional minutes. You're going to want him. But 22,500 guaranteed, 4,500 going to first, $12 to get in. You can get 65 entries if you really want to. So don't be afraid to load up.
I really want to.
Yeah. Similar scoring systems to FanDuel and Draftkings. It's kind of a little bit of a merge to both of them. So you're not coming in with anything super weird. Everything you see is going to be normal. You just have the ability to roster anybody because of the multiplier. If you want full-on studs, you can do that. You could approach it however you would like. You know, they've got golf contests. Baseball's going to be coming up soon. They're going to be running those as well. NFL is over, but they do have NFL contests. It's a great place to play. I highly recommend it. Go to the link that ends up in chat shortly, which will allow you to use the promo code AWESEMO. Get yourself $20 in super cash on your first $100 deposit or more. Going to be talking about it a little bit pretty regularly. Probably going to do some extended Live Before Locks again moving forward when they have slates where there's not a lot at like one game at 7 and everything else after that. We could do a delayed lock and kind of extend the game a bit. So with that said, go check out Super Draft. Link just got dropped into chat right now. No limits, more winning. Super Draft. Did I do that right, Lofty? Did I hit it? Did I hit it?
Oh man.
Yeah, had to do it. I don't really remember how he did it, but
I don't either. It was not as egregious as that though. I know that.
no, it wasn't. 8 games instead of 9. You ready to talk about them?
Yeah, let's go.
Here we go. The Charlotte Hornets and the New York Knicks. Woo. 105.5 implied total for the Hornets, 103.5 for the New York Knicks. For the Hornets, I don't think we have anything terribly interesting to point out from a health perspective. It appears that they're dusting Malik Monk off again, potentially for the trade deadline. I don't know what to do with that information as of right now. He is in for me. But let's start with the guy that I like the most for the Hornets, or feel free to start wherever you would like. I'm a big fan of Devontae Graham today. Being able to face the Knicks is always helpful. This is not a great DFS game just from a scoring perspective. You know, both teams have incredibly low implied totals, the second and third lowest for the slate. But Graham's minutes are still really, really high. He's just not playing nearly as well as he was earlier in the season. 6,400 on FanDuel feels reasonable to me. I think that he's quite a bit underpriced. I don't even mind the 7,400 on DraftKings, but my focus would be on the FanDuel price. After that, you know, I think Rozier is mildly viable given the minutes. If you want to go to someone like Miles Bridges, I think that's fine with a very little amount of value on DK. Does anything stand out to you from the Hornets?
Not really. I do agree with Miles Bridges. That's an interesting point too. Keep an eye on the starting lineup. I think everyone assumes he's back in it, but verify that. Because Nick Batum started over him last game, but that was the game in Paris, which everyone thinks is the reason why. So assuming Bridges is back in the lineup playing around 30 minutes, I think 4,400 is a really nice price tag for him. Devontae Graham's FanDuel salary, like you said, is really good. DraftKings more of a neutral option here. The minutes are there. The usage has been down a bit over the last month. Teams are just kind of attacking him different defensively, and he hasn't really adjusted yet. So the minutes are still nice. The matchup in terms of the Knicks' defensive ability is nice, but this is also should be a really slow-paced game, which takes away a lot of appeal. So just kind of everyone on DraftKings looks pretty neutral to me. I think, you know, Bridges, again, as a value play is something that is probably the most appealing from the Charlotte side.
Yeah, Bridges on DraftKings for sure. 4,400 is where I'm looking. I would have him ahead of Graham, just if we're comparing, you know, those two guys individually. Graham's price on FanDuel is kind of saving the day for him. As of right now, I want to make sure that I'm not wrong. Graham would be my number one shooting guard on FanDuel, given that price. It's also just a really not fun game. Speaking of not fun, the Knicks side of this game. The only person to be ranked in a player pool for me on FanDuel or DK is Julius Randle for 7,400 on FanDuel. I have nothing on DraftKings, a full blank column. I don't have anything else besides Randle on FanDuel. I think Randle for 33 on Yahoo is fine as well. Do you want Knicks?
Not really. DraftKings priced them up. Yeah. Basically, the pricing on them on DraftKings, it's like they priced them for Charlotte's defensive abilities, but did not factor in that Charlotte's the slowest team in the league by a very, very wide margin. 2 possessions slower than the next slowest team over the last month, which is Miami. So that is really unappealing. And then getting, guys priced up at like 8,500 on Julius Randle makes it pretty tough to like anything here, even though I like the matchup as far as I don't think Charlotte's going to do a very good job of slowing Randle down. I just don't know that there's going to be enough possessions for me to feel confident going to these guys at these salaries.
Yeah, this is the least appealing DFS game fully, right? Like there's nothing. Every other game is going to look better than this.
Which I don't think is surprising when you're talking about the Hornets and the Knicks.
No, I'm ready to move on.
Yep.
To my Philadelphia 76ers, who are playing a home game, so I don't actually care at all about the outcome of this one. 113.25 implied total for the Sixers. 99.75 for the Warriors. Fantastic there. It's possible we see Joel Embiid here. I probably wouldn't want to play him, but if you're just trying to get him out there to get like some run, it feels like a pretty soft spot to go out there and get a little bit of conditioning back. I put him in for right now. It seemed easier to me. It is a finger injury, so like he's either ready or he's not. I'm not like he doesn't have to test out his knee. Like he can just make a fist. Does it hurt? No, right. I can play basketball.
Yeah, they said he was visiting with the specialist before the game.
He said he was, about ready to play too. So And 7 o'clock start doesn't really matter. We're going to know this news one way or the other.
Right.
I like Ben Simmons, 9,800 on FanDuel, 10K on DK, 43 on Yahoo. I think Embiid for 9K on FanDuel, if he is in, is really appealing. I'm a little less interested on DraftKings, but even still. And then, I don't know, Thibault, I guess. You would expect the Warriors to be coughing it up a lot. My man loves stealing the basketball. So ultimately, pretty much just Simmons for me. Embiid if he's in. I don't really have a ton of interest in Harris or Horford.
I'm really interested in Harris if Embiid's out.
Agreed.
He's still only 7,400 on DraftKings. He's playing monster minutes. And one interesting note from the last game, and it's something that I would expect them to be able to do against Golden State as well, is that with Norville Appel not on the roster, they didn't go to Kyle O'Quinn as the backup center. They played small. Mike Scott played 9 or 10 minutes, and then you had Harris getting some minutes. So I think even more productive minutes for Harris if that's the case again. And then without Richardson or Embiid on the floor this year, he has a 27% usage rate. So if I'm getting 37, 38 minutes of Harris without Embiid, I'm pretty interested in that. If Embiid's back, then obviously I'm tapering those expectations a bit. Ben Simmons, I think it's a good spot for him. Obviously, it's a relatively fast Golden State team. They're not very good defensively. Simmons playing monster minutes as well. He's been more aggressive recently, and gives you a high floor because of the rebounding and assist numbers. So again, if Embiid's back, I'm a little bit less interested in Simmons since I think that Embiid is likely to cut into his aggressiveness a little bit. But if Embiid's out, I think that Simmons still looks like a good option.
Yeah, so much of this just hinges on Embiid's status. And if he's in, I just don't think it's going to be all that interesting of a spot for anybody. And then we go to Golden State because we have to, I guess. Welcome back, Marquise Chris. I guess you might actually be... Well, if D'Angelo Russell wasn't 7,600, Marquise Chris might be the best option for the Warriors. Russell's the guy. 8K on FanDuel, 7,600 on DraftKings, 14.4 on Fantasy Draft. I don't mind getting to Russell. I don't really mind getting to Alec Burks. His price is slowly coming down, although kind of minutes are as well. What do you want to do for Golden State in a really difficult defensive matchup?
Yeah, I think Russell's the one that stands out the most just because he's D'Angelo Russell and he's going to lead the team in usage and have the most opportunities to do well. It is a tough matchup. It's a low total for Golden State. I think Draymond at 5,400 is pretty appealing as well. He actually played about 32 minutes last game, closed at center. I think that Cauley Stein being gone could benefit Green a little bit. Obviously, it all comes down to how much does Steve Kerr want to play him on any given night.
Yeah.
But the opportunities for a little bit more productive minutes are there, and the price tag's really cheap. So I think that he is one of the more appealing options. And then Marquise Chris, he's a good per minute player. If Embiid's in, it's obviously a brutal spot for him.
Yeah.
If Embiid's out, it's a little bit easier, but Horford's still a good defender. One thing that did stand out to me from the last game was that Chris still only played 22 minutes. He did not close. They went with Draymond. So that's at least a little bit concerning going forward.
Yeah, I did give Draymond a chunk of minutes at center in comparison to whatever Chris and Spellman had left. Ultimately, I just don't want to be there. This is a sub 100-point implied total and a team filled with guys that are barely NBA caliber players. So it's Russell. And I agree. Draymond for 5,400 on DraftKings, $400 cheaper than he is on FanDuel. We don't see that a lot anymore. So that's a pretty decent price for him. He's been bad lately, but that's also not terribly surprising. Again, these 7 o'clock games, I'm not expecting to be showing a lot of currently winning money at 7:30.
I'm not expecting to be showing a lot of currently winning money at any point in the night at this point.
You said it, man. I don't even have to make that joke.
No, actually, my in-game currently winnings have been good lately.
Oh, okay. What about at the end of games?
No.
No? Okay.
No.
If only they had a cash out button.
Yeah, it would be great.
Oh, I'm going to break even? Done. Josh, are you worried about the coronavirus? Are they putting like AIDS in beer or something?
Great answer.
No, I'm not at all. I'm not worried about anything.
In what context? Like for the players, for ourselves?
I don't know. Pretty hard to catch the coronavirus when you don't leave your office. I feel like I caught it last night with whatever the Rockets were spewing, but
Right.
the coronavirus isn't even as strong as the flu. Well, that's fine because I had the flu and I thought that was going to be the end of me. So, Cleveland Cavaliers and New Orleans Pelicans. This one should be fun. Pels are 7.5-point favorites in Cleveland. Cleveland terrible defensively. A lot of extra possessions coming in for the Cavs. Coming in back-to-back. Love 7,200 on FanDuel, 7,700 on DraftKings. Tristan Thompson, 5,500 on FanDuel, 5,700 on DraftKings. I really like Tristan Thompson today. One of my top 10 plays. Showed up in the contenders. I don't know if that's really a badge of honor at this point. And then Darius Garland is 4K on FanDuel. I don't think that he's very good, but that is a very low price. I'm actually going to be getting a decent amount of Cleveland today. Never fun. Talk to me about the Cavs.
Yeah, I mean, it is a huge pace-up spot for them, like you said. Thompson is still really cheap. One concern that I would point out with Thompson is that so like yesterday, they played Drummond, and that's obviously bigger. But the last two smaller teams they played, you had a matchup against the Bulls and a matchup against the Wizards. Larry Nance closed over Thompson in both of those games. So that's a little bit concerning to me. But still, it's a cheap price tag. And if he's playing well, he probably plays more minutes. So no issues there. The FanDuel price on Garland, like you said, is really nice. 5,600 on DraftKings is nowhere near as friendly. Kevin Love's 7,800 on DraftKings, which is okay, assuming he plays, but not anything that I think is great. So I think the DraftKings pricing here is actually pretty sharp on Cleveland.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I'm intrigued by Thompson because I just really don't know how many minutes he gets, but he's certainly in line. Like, he didn't play at all in the fourth quarter yesterday. If he does, he's probably north of 30 minutes.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. I just assumed he had. So that actually makes me really concerned.
Well, the game was over. He didn't play in the fourth quarter because they were.
Oh, it was just blowout.
It was 100% blowout. It wasn't up in Popcorn Machine earlier today. So. Oh
yeah, I'm looking at it now. Love didn't play either.
Yeah, that's what made me more interested.
Yeah, so I mean the thing that concerns me, like I said, is just that if the Pels are closing with like Zion at the 5, you could get Nance instead.
I feel like you would want Thompson.
I mean, I think they're screwed either way. But
sure, yeah. I mean,
that opens it up to whatever they want to do.
Yeah,
like yesterday, if Drummond is closing and it's a competitive game, you're just not going with Nance.
Like, Thompson played monster minutes. I mean, 26.5 in 3 quarters. Like, I mean, he's staring at 32 plus if that game is even remotely competitive. What would you give him for today? Like, I gave him 32.
I'll probably go like 30.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not reading too much into the playing time yesterday just because that was an Andre Drummond matchup and it's just different.
Right.
The thing that just concerns me is the Bulls and the Hawks games where we don't really have much of a sample of John Henson and Larry Nance both being healthy, and kind of the first games we got against teams where where the opposing center gives John Beilein an option as far as playing Thompson or Nance. He went with Nance both times.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know if you mentioned it or not. Apologies, I was not listening. 4K Darius Garland on FanDuel. Any thoughts?
Yeah, just that's a really good price.
Okay. On the Pels side, it's just a tricky spot to get to these guys right now. We need to start with Zion, I guess. I gave him 27 minutes. They're obviously okay with bumping him up to some sort of range now. What are you anticipating for Zion from a playing time perspective, considering we've been so great at projecting playing time these past 24 hours?
Right. I'll probably give him like 28 to 30, somewhere in there. His playing time has increased every game. He played 27 last game, including closing against the Celtics. So I don't want to get too carried away, but I think that there's a chance he plays a little bit more than 27 here
Do you have any interest?
on Super Draft for sure.
Yeah, Super Draft, he is my number one play of the day.
Yeah, I had 100% of him last time on Super Draft, and I had him projected for way fewer than 28 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, some interest in him because it is the Cavs. He has been, pretty productive so far. He should be good. It's just always tough when you're talking about mid-range guys, though, that are on at least some sort of minutes restriction, because it makes it so hard for them to get that really top end range of outcomes.
Yeah.
Like even if Zion goes out there and plays really well in 28 minutes and gets you like 47 fantasy points, so yeah, you're happy with that, but it's just so difficult if he's only going to play like let's say 28 minutes for him to give you like 55 or something. And there are other guys in that price range that have that kind of ceiling.
I'm kind of surprised that they don't price him down a little bit more just to like have people rostering him just for the fun aspect of it all. Yeah, I think he's more in play on FanDuel at 6,300 than he is at 7,200 on DraftKings. Don't get the sense that I would have a lot. I like favors for 5,500 on FanDuel. I think that works out pretty well. I don't mind Ingram for 7,600 on DraftKings. He's $600 cheaper than he is on FanDuel. Again, we don't see that all that often anymore. Pelicans just kind of feel like filler to me, which is weird. Not necessarily like one guy breaking free from the pack. I want to have them because the Cavs are so bad, and 120.25 implied total is something I want to have a piece of, but I think it's more just like slivers of a bunch of guys than a lot of exposure to one guy in particular.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like pieces of the Pelicans are most likely going to do well, but with Zion being back, it makes it really difficult. Well, with Zion and really with Drew being back also now, it makes it really difficult to pinpoint the one guy that goes nuts. Like if Drew were out or Zion were out, and this were the situation like it was 2 weeks ago, you would just be playing like 100% Brandon Ingram because he's going to do everything while he's out there, and you'd be playing tons of Lonzo. Now, fewer rebounds to go around because of Zion, your lower usage to go around, obviously, because of Zion. It's a lot more difficult to confidently say like, oh yeah, this is the guy that accounts for a large percentage of the Pelicans production today.
Right. I don't have anything else in this game. We have not really talked about anybody that is a no-brainer.
The Pelicans today are kind of like in NFL when you have a team that is going to throw a lot, but you have like 2 good tight ends and 3 good wide receivers that they're going to be throwing it to.
Yeah, it's going to be they're going to be real spread out, that's for sure. Bit of a different game here. Miami Heat, Boston Celtics. Heat 2.5 point favorites over Boston. Heat on a back-to-back. And Boston is going to be without Jason Tatum, without Enes Kanter. This is going to be the first spot where I'm talking about guys that I like quite a bit, but we'll start on the Miami side. I'm just going to assume that everybody's playing for right now. We'll see what the status of Kendrick Nunn ends up being. 8,500 on FanDuel for Butler, 81 on DK. Bam Adebayo, 7,900 and 8,400. Really like Bam on FanDuel for 7,900. I don't really have a ton of interest in anything else from Miami. This is a tough spot, but Butler and Bam would be the guys that I'm interested in. If Kendrick Nunn ends up out, you start to see a little bit more possibility for value, but Tyler Hero is already expensive. Goran Dragic, I'm going to get that one just like all the time soon enough, but I'll probably just continue to screw it up for at least another month.
I'll say, how do you normally say it? Because I never noticed it, but I know it drives Lofty crazy.
I don't know. Now I can't figure it out. Now I can only say it right in my head. I'd have to just ask me to say it like in a half hour or something when I'm not thinking about it. What do you want from Miami?
Yeah, it's not a team that I'm super interested in. I'm with you as far as Butler and Bam being the most appealing guys. Decent pricing on them, but back-to-back concerns me a little bit since Butler has been playing banged up as well. Only played about 30 minutes yesterday. Hero's price tag came up, like you said. Goran Dragic's price tag is not super appealing. If none is out, obviously you're getting more minutes for Tyler Hero, but yeah, overall just kind of secondary pieces and nothing I really like. Butler and Bam would be at the top of the Miami guys.
I don't have anything else to add here. It's not. It's just not fun. It's never fun rostering anybody from the Heat, really. Like, that's unless people are out. I don't know. I'd say Bam on Yahoo for 33 is my favorite play on the Heat side. But now we can actually talk about a lot of guys that are in play. Again, no Tatum, no Cantor. I fully expect to have a lot of Kemba Walker, Gordon Hayward, Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, and Daniel Tice. You can kind of sort those guys however you want. All 5 guys are in play on every site we're talking about. I'm less enamored with Kemba for 8K on FanDuel, although it's certainly not a problem. Brown and Smart are probably my favorite guys on DraftKings, but again, all 5 guys that I just named are in my top 22 on DK. They are going to make up a ton of my exposure. Is there anybody in that group of 5 that you are not interested in?
I think Daniel Tice is the least interesting just because he's 5,700 on DraftKings. I do expect 30 to 32 minutes, but you're at least he's around the fantasy point per minute player. I expect around 30 minutes, and he's 5,700. So not in love with that spot, especially because on DraftKings he's only a center. Smart, I think, is kind of marginal as well. He's averaged 0.84 DraftKings points per minute without Tatum on the floor. You should get like 36 minutes. So I think that he's good, but a little bit less exciting than Kemba and Jaylen and Hayward are.
Okay. Let's talk about groups. I know it's a question we get a lot. Is there anything you would do for these Celtics guys in Fantasy Cruncher?
I don't think so. Obviously, I wouldn't want like 100 or 100% of my lineups having all of Kemba, Hayward, Brown, or something like that. I could see maybe setting a group like max 2 out of Brown, Hayward, Smart, because and the reasoning there. Normally, I set my groups based on my expected closing lineup, which isn't the case here because I expect all those guys to be in the closing lineup. But my thinking on them would be that Kemba is the number 1 guy offensively. And if we assume that Kemba is going out there and getting his, that leaves, X amount of leftover scoring. And when you look at Brown, Hayward, Smart, 1 or 2 of those guys probably do well, but it seems less likely that all 3 of them have big offensive games.
Right. The way that I have it set up now, you're looking for, mid 40s in fantasy points for each one of those guys, Hayward, Brown, and Smart, essentially. Smart on the lower end, Hayward on the higher end. It just feels unlikely that you would want. I can't see a scenario where you would want all 3. I mean, I can in 150 lineups. It's whatever, but I get where you're coming from with that. But ultimately, I assume Boston will be the team that makes up the most of my exposure, barring any sort of really weird news that comes out. I really wouldn't be trying to limit any of these 5 guys. Do you get to anybody else from Boston? I assume the answer is no.
No.
Okay. Who is your favorite play from Boston?
Kemba.
Okay. It'd be Jaylen for me right now. But
1.3 DraftKings points per minute for Kemba without Tatum, 31.9% usage rate. Played 38 minutes on Sunday. I think if you're getting 34 to 36 normally from him at 1.3 points per minute, that's obviously really appealing. Jaylen would be next. He has a really high usage percentage at 27%. He plays really big minutes. He's still a 1 fantasy point per minute guy. The high usage percentage though does give him a really high ceiling because he's at least got the opportunities if he shoots better than normal.
All right, guys, we are at the midway point. 580 of you here, only 122 likes. Step your game up. Step your game up. Don't pay me back for bad Rockets takes. There's nothing I can do about that. Pay us forward with a thumbs up, which costs you nothing but helps us out tremendously. A thumbs up wouldn't hurt. Coming up later today, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. PGA Strategy Show. Ben Rasa and not Tim Frank. Sal Vetri joining him. Tim's traveling today, not going to be able to make it. Alex will have his game plan stream at 4 p.m. We will also have the NHL Strategy Show at 4 p.m. Laffy will be on the deeper dive with Adam, so Adam will be back later this afternoon at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And then at 6 p.m. tonight, Fast Eddie Fear, Chris Randone, live before lock, taking you guys up to 7. Today's free content, NBA ownership projections, NHL ownership projections, and the PGA Above the Cut article. We will also be doing a giveaway, so stay tuned to our Twitter feeds and stay tuned to the Deeper Dive and Live Before Lock where we can plug that giveaway. Well, halfway point. 4 up. Let's go to the next 4. Toronto Raptors, Atlanta Hawks. 122.5 implied total for the Raptors, 110.5 for the Hawks. Major pace up spot for Toronto. This one's going to be a tricky one because it's clearly one of the best possible spots you could have from a fantasy perspective. The question is, what does Toronto do? I really like Pascal Siakam for 7,600 on FanDuel. Really like Fred VanVleet for 7,500 on FanDuel, $30 on Yahoo. His minutes are monstrous once again. Kyle Lowry is always sort of fine. Marc Gasol is 4,900 on DraftKings. Doesn't really do a lot from a usage perspective, but if his minutes continue to look like they have in the past 2 games, I gave him 27. It becomes an interesting piece of value on a day where we don't have a lot of guys to pay all the way down for. Even guys like OG Anunoby at 25 minutes are sneaking into like, oh, is that guy viable? Because there's nothing else below 4K, at least not yet. How are you trying to manage Toronto in just a gimme matchup?
Yeah, I think this is one team where groups are going to be important. Obviously, you don't want Ibaka and Gasol together. I don't want Norm Powell and OG together. But the follow up to that is we're getting around 25 minutes normally from OG, but he hasn't been closing. Powell's been closing over him. There's nothing saying that there's going to be no games going forward where OG closes. I think that it's probably just going to be kind of a game flow thing. So having OG at 4K, where a 25-minute projection is decent. He's going to project around 5x if you give him 25 minutes, but there's at least, some chance he gets like 30 minutes instead. Makes him a pretty appealing option, especially if the ownership isn't going to be really high. For Lowry, I think the price tag is appealing. The concern that I have is that close to all of his minutes are coming alongside Pascal Siakam. So far this year, he's played 670 minutes with Siakam on the floor. He's averaged 0.93 DraftKings points per minute, only a 20.5% usage rate. So pretty much the least productive minutes that you can possibly give Kyle Lowry. But, that price tag's still pretty appealing if you think you're going to get 35, 36 plus minutes from him. And then VanVleet, the FanDuel salary is really good. DraftKings, he's more expensive, but he is back to playing huge minutes, like you said. He played at least 40 in 2 of the last 3 games, played 38 in the other ones. So, I think he's fine as well.
If this one's going to be the trickiest one on the slate, Atlanta is just so bad defensively, and this is just such a great spot for Toronto. Second highest implied total on the slate. I'm nervous to see how my exposures look as we get closer to lock, because I expect them to just run some of these guys into the ground because they just always do, but it also wouldn't shock me if Nick Nurse played 12 guys today and everybody played like 22 minutes because they beat the Hawks by 44.
Right.
Favorite Raptor?
When factoring in the salary, probably OG.
He would also be my top Raptor as of right now, with Marc Gasol being a close second. This could flip on its head with 1 or 2 pieces of news that open up like sub 4K guys. I think Siakam comes into play a little bit more as we can afford guys up the ladder a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And then we go to Atlanta. Trae Young, 10K on FanDuel, 10-3 on DK. Hell, 18-3 on Fantasy Draft and $48 on Yahoo might be the better prices. Kevin Huerter, 4,900 on FanDuel. I like that quite a bit. 5,500 on DK. No problems there. Cam Reddish, I think, is terrible at basketball. He is viable as value, especially at 4,300. I don't have much interest in John Collins, but I rarely do. What do you want to do with these Atlanta guys in just like a not good matchup at all for the Hawks?
Yeah, I mean, I'll still play Trae Young. He's for most of the season, he's been getting minutes even in blowouts. Played 39 minutes last game in a pretty non-competitive game against the Wizards. Around 1.4 DraftKings points per minute. And obviously, if Atlanta does hang in this game, he's very likely to be the reason why. So I like him. Beyond that, there's really nothing.
Yeah, it's no interest in like Kevin Huerter or Reddish for right now.
No, not really.
That's fair.
I'm not going to try. Not a good matchup. So many minutes for Young. Not really getting there.
I'm not going to advocate too hard for this one. Not the hill I want to die on. The Hawks are already dying on Cam Reddish hill. I'll let them die on their own. That one's not for me. Who knows? Maybe he'll end up being good, or maybe he won't. Is OG Anunoby your favorite play in this game, or does that just kind of move to Trae Young?
I mean, different types of plays. Like, if I look at my exposures and I have a lot of Trae Young, I'm going to be happy. If I have a lot of OG, I'm not going to be happy.
Right.
But I think that Young or OG is probably like the best point per dollar value from the game. Young is, I think, the highest ceiling guy.
One thing we should probably point out, Alex Len is out for this game, and Bruno Fernando is questionable. Does anything change for you if Bruno Fernando is out?
Damian
DraftKings
preemptively. Yeah, I'll say DraftKings preemptively priced up Jones. You would get Collins at the 5 more, so his rebounding numbers should increase.
You think that's better or worse for him in this spot?
Neutral.
Okay. Does Damian Jones come into play for you on FanDuel flat minimum?
Center?
Yeah, I don't know.
No. If he's a center, definitely not.
I have no idea if he's a center. I assume he is, but FanDuel's weird. He is a center.
Yeah, no.
Okay. All right. We're walking to Memphis. Nuggets 1-point favorites against the Grizz. For Memphis, I believe everybody is healthy outside of Jay Crowder. For Denver, we will not be having Jamal Murray or Paul Millsap once again. Memphis guys are kind of all over the place. Nobody stands out as great. Denver brings the pace down, so not exactly a fun spot. I think Joval 6,600 on FanDuel, 6,700 on DraftKings is a guy that I want to have my eye on. Maybe a little bit of DeAnthony Melton. I don't know. Does Slow-Mo picking up enough minutes at 4,100 to be viable if Jay Crowder is out? I don't get excited when I look at this Grizzlies team. It feels like I'm going to have like 5 separate guys at 5% ownership.
Yeah, it's kind of how I feel too. I think that the price on Valanciunas looks good. It's a spot where you would expect him to get towards the upper end of his minutes range. Kind of surprised that Melton only played 18 minutes last game.
Yeah.
I thought he would play more.
Especially now with
I
no
think
Grayson
there's at least
Allen.
a chance. What did you say?
No Grayson Allen for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. I mean, Allen was out last game,
right?
Too. So I thought Melton would play more. Maybe we see that more going forward. So I think that he's someone you can at least gamble on in tournaments because the ownership should be low and the salary is affordable. But there's obviously a lot of risk there. Dylan Brooks' price tag is up a bit. So yeah, I mean, like John Morant isn't overpriced. Neither is Jaren Jackson. Valanciunas clearly isn't, but it is still a pretty unappealing game. They do have a good, 113 total. So I probably get to a pretty good amount of Jonas Valanciunas. If Jaren Jackson is low owned at 6,300, that's the guy that I'll take some shots on as well.
Man, I'd like to go back a year and change to when you and I were rostering like 65% Jaren Jackson at 0.1% ownership.
Yeah, I still roster him a lot, just not that much.
Yeah. Whew. Those were fun days. Oh, cool. Jaren Jackson picked up 4 fouls in the first 30 seconds that he played. Everything is dead for us. The good old days. Got to go to Denver. I think I don't want to say a lot to like here, but there's definitely a lot to talk about. Nikola Jokic, 10-1 on FanDuel, 10-2 on DK, $44 on Yahoo, probably his best price tag. It's a pace-up spot for Denver. I mean, every game basically is. I like Jokic quite a bit. more so on FanDuel as your solitary center than I do on DK. The guy that I like the most out of the Nuggets, though, Michael Porter Jr. played 24 minutes the past 2 games. He's 5,300 on FanDuel, 6,200 on DraftKings, only $17 on Yahoo. That is definitely his best price. Been a 1.18 fantasy point per minute guy on FanDuel for the past 30 days. I gave him those 24 minutes once again, and given the way that value exists, the mid-tier is where it's at, and Michael Porter Jr., for me, one of my favorite plays. He's in my top 10 contenders for today. I will also get to a little bit of Will Barton, but he seems to be a guy that I can't stop getting to. Talk to me about the Nugs.
Yeah, I think as far as the DraftKings pricing goes, I would prefer Barton at 6,600 over Porter at 62. Jokic is the one that really stands out. We expected his playing time to go up with Plumlee's injury, and that's been the case, coming off of a 38.5-minute game against Houston. So I think, you can pretty comfortably assume you're getting around 36 minutes from Jokic, assuming, no foul trouble or blowout or anything. And then you also get the increased production of Murray and Millsap being out. So I really love Jokic here. I think it's a good spot for him. I think the minutes should be there. Beyond that, you get a pretty decent price tag at 6,600 on Will Barton. Only played 24 and a half minutes against Houston, but he picked up 3 first-half fouls, so lost at least 4.5 minutes there. Subbed out in the third quarter when he picked up his 4th foul. So it seems like it was pretty foul-related why he only played 24 minutes. So pretty comfortable going to him at 6,600 as well. Gary Harris at 4,300, only played 23 minutes against Houston. I assume they're bringing him back slowly, intentionally, so not a whole lot there for me. Mostly Jokic and Martin.
Agreed. And Porter for me as well. Any Monty Morris interest?
No, he's 5,500 on DraftKings, which is not a great price point.
Yeah.
His usage, I didn't realize he didn't start last game. So his usage when he plays alongside Jokic is not very exciting.
He didn't start last game?
At least according to Popcorn Machine.
Played 35 minutes? You just played the whole rest of the game?
It says he plays 35 off the bench.
Okay. Just making sure, because I knew that he played big minutes, and I was like, oh, okay. Then he played all of the second, third, and fourth quarter, basically.
Yeah, Popcorn Machine has Barton, Craig, Harris, Grant, Jokic.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I get it.
Yeah, so he did sub in for Barton in the second when Barton got in foul trouble. So maybe picked up a few extra minutes there, but yeah, just not a price point that I'm interested in getting more.
Okay, yeah, I gave him 28 minutes, so it's not like he was popping up for anything crazy. If you think that he can play 32 plus, comes back into play a little bit, I guess. Favorite play in this game?
Jokic.
Okay, I agree. Oh boy, buckle up for this one, man. Milwaukee Bucks, Washington Wizards. Bucks 128 implied total. That is 5.5 points higher than any other team on the slate. Wizards 112. This should be an incredibly fast-paced game. This should be an incredibly fast-paced game that is over by halftime. 11-8 for Giannis on FanDuel, 12-1 on DK. I don't mind Eric Bledsoe's price on FanDuel for 5,800. Chris Middleton looks pretty good for 7K across both sites. Dante DiVincenzo on DraftKings on a day where we don't have a ton of value out there. What do you want to do with Milwaukee against your boys?
I like Bledsoe and Middleton the most because with Milwaukee, you get pretty concentrated production, and they are out of the group that you expect to be putting up points in a hurry. They're the most favorably priced. I don't think that Giannis is overpriced at 12-3, but when you have guys like Jokic and Trae Young on the slate, you still have these really high ceiling guys that you don't have to pay the premium for. And on DraftKings, at least as of right now, there's not really a ton of great value. So I think it's kind of tough to get to him without sacrificing too much in your lineups. But with Middleton and Bledsoe, you can roster those guys, hope that it's just one of those games where Giannis kind of takes it easy and that Middleton or Bledsoe are hot. So I really like the pricing on both of them.
Yeti says, if this game's close, Giannis will score 90. If this game's close, I assume that Giannis is playing terribly.
I know. I mean, if this game's close, it means Beal has 60 real points.
Yeah, probably.
I don't normally do it, but setting something like if Giannis then Beal is not the craziest rule today.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't mind Brook Lopez, 4,800 on DraftKings. Again, there's not all that much value out there. I have to get to at least a little bit of Milwaukee in some form. Be very aware of the construction of those Milwaukee guys, but a 128 implied total, no matter what you think that outcome is going to be, that's a lot of fantasy points.
Yeah. And you mentioned DiVincenzo too. Only 4,300 on DraftKings is a good salary.
I have them projected for 262.6 DK points right now. That is without question the highest number on the slate. So just pay attention, avoid the Pat Connaughton, Robin Lopez, Ilyasova tier, and be very aware of the way that you piece together everybody else. And then we move to your Wizards. 8,800 on FanDuel, 8,300 on DK for Bradley Beal. Minutes are climbing back up again. Can't imagine not wanting to have a bunch of him. But the guy that I like the most from the Wiz, 4,700 on FanDuel, 4,500 on DraftKings. Troy Brown, Jordan McRae is out, so that's just sort of like a little bit easier to make, like, not that his minutes were going to be in flux, but that's just more minutes that can go to Troy Brown. I gave him 29, and I am getting an absolute ton of him as of right now. I think that Ish Smith is also viable for 4,500 on DK. I like a lot of the Wizards today, and I hate myself for it.
I don't like a lot of the Wizards, but I agree with you on Brown at 4,500. The minutes should be more secure without McRae. They need bench scoring, and McRae was kind of the guy. Now it should be Brown. Beal, again, I think is fine. If the Wizards hang in this game, it's going to be Beal. The one guy that I think is really interesting is Davis Bertans, who 32 minutes last game. He's only 5,300 on DraftKings. Milwaukee's a very, very good defensive team, of course. But the one thing that they've kind of allowed this year is they give up a lot of 3-point attempts. I expect them to kind of be selling out to slow down Beal. And then you have Bertans, who's one of the best 3-point shooters in the league, at only 5,300 and playing 30-plus minutes. I think this is a game where Bertans could just go nuts.
Yeah, I have him ranked 25th on DK right now, but I only gave him 29 minutes. It's very possible that I end up with 32 by the end of, as we get closer to lock, which is going to be putting him in a lot of my lineups.
Yeah. And also he could be a little bit of a trickle-down beneficiary of McRae being out, just getting more looks because McRae's not shooting.
So 2 follow-ups then. Any interest in the Ish Isaiah Thomas duo? And are you hashing out anybody else in like that Peyton, Bonga? Like, do you think anybody makes that leap into a minutes range that's relevant?
Not really on Ish and Isaiah. Like 4,500 for Ish it wouldn't be surprising if he does well, but yeah. I just think that there are other guys there that I would rather look to. And then as far as the rest of the guys, no, because you're just seeing really, really low playing time for most of them.
Okay. And then final question for the Wizards. What are we expecting out of this rotation of center minutes, or if it's not center minutes, if Thomas Bryant is suddenly the power forward?
Yes, I mean, it's pretty tough right now. Like last game, you got 15 from Mahinmi, you got 22 total from Bryant. Some of them alongside Mahinmi, and you got 15 from Pasek Sneaks. Damian Jones is a guy on the Wizards now, I guess, that played 8 minutes as well.
I don't have that, but that could just be adding.
I'm just looking at Popcorn Machine.
Other Damian Jones?
Yeah, I don't know.
What day? Sunday?
Whenever they played Atlanta. So, yeah, Sunday.
Okay, so I have 240 minutes going to people not named him.
Okay. Yeah, Popcorn Machine just randomly has Damian Jones playing 8.5 minutes for the Wizards.
No.
Yeah, that seemed weird.
Do you have Bonga at 4.6?
I have Bonga not playing.
Okay. I think we can throw that one in the garbage then.
Oh, no, I see. Yeah, 4.6 for Bonga.
Okay. Yeah, either way, I have 240 minutes allocated to them, and none of them are going to anyone named Damian Jones.
All right, cool. But yeah, so either way, I think the center rotation's a mess and not something that I plan on getting to.
Okay. Favorite play in this game?
It might be Bertans.
Oh, okay. I was wondering if you were going to say that it's Brown. Because for me, it's Brown.
Yeah, Brown's up there.
Yeah.
The issue with Brown that I have is that he's a lot less productive with Beal, and So coming off the bench is good for Brown, but with how many minutes Beal plays, there's only so many minutes that are without him.
Yeah, I thought about that, went back to Wowie, put Beal on to take a look at it, and immediately just started crushing like his usage rate and stuff, and then opened it up and still had him as my favorite play on
Right.
DraftKings, and I was like, okay.
Yeah, I still think he's a good play.
And only 29 minutes, which I think could potentially be low. So here's what I think is an actually legitimate question. Who from the Wizards do you think could close no matter the scenario?
You mean like if they're getting killed or not?
Yeah. Like how different does the closing lineup look in a close game than compared to what would look like a blowout?
Right. So it's kind of tough in the blowout situation because the Wizards do have so many bodies they could use. But against Atlanta in a game they were losing by 20 plus points for like the entire fourth quarter, Beal and Bertans played most of the fourth. Brown, Smith, Pastic Sneaks played. I don't really like. I don't expect another 38 minutes in a blowout from Beal. I kind of think that might have been a Kobe thing. So I would assume that you're getting like Brown, Pastic Sneaks, some combination of Bonga, Peyton, and then probably Ish.
Okay. Just curious. Didn't know if there was anything like logistical that would put us in a good spot where, this guy is probably safe one way or the other.
I think Brown would probably be the most relevant guy in any like that has minutes regardless.
Agreed. Let's close it out now. Final game, Dallas Mavericks, Phoenix Suns. Mavs are 6-point favorites coming in on a back-to-back. Does Porzingis play today?
He played, so his last back-to-back was December 28th and 9th, which is when he got hurt, I believe. Yeah, the last game he had played was December 29th. So I don't know. I haven't seen anything on it. I'm kind of assuming he doesn't, especially since they have Cauley-Stein now and Cauley-Stein DNP'd yesterday.
Right.
It would be pretty easy for them to just say, okay, Cauley-Stein's playing this one. But yeah, obviously keep an eye out for news on that.
Yeah, $11K on FanDuel, $12K on DraftKings for Luka Doncic. Love Luka on FanDuel at that price. DraftKings is a bit of a tough sell, at least as of right now, just given the makeup of value. But if we remove Porzingis from this team, Luka's going to climb considerably. And after that, it's just that cast a wide net. I'll have some Tim Hardaway, I'll have some DFS, potentially DeLon Wright, potentially Seth Curry. All these guys looking really similar in the 4K range. You just have to hope that you guess right on the guy that's good for that day. They have too many similar guys from a DFS perspective. Anything for you?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. If Porzingis sits, then you should be getting Cauley-Stein minutes, but also you'll still want to be cautious there because Carlisle had said they were going to ease him into things and kind of slowly bring him along. So I would think that if Porzingis sits, it's more of a benefit for $4,200 Maxi Kleber than it is for $4,700 Cauley-Stein.
Yeah.
Doncic, I think I would give him a slight edge over Giannis in that price range. But the problem that you still run into is just that it's really tough to get there without playing some really questionable value.
I would also be going to Luka over Giannis in this scenario, but I don't think that either one of them are particularly enticing given the way that everything looks right now.
No. And if I do get to them in lineups, assuming that I'm actually happy with what else is in there, I'm more than happy because I think that they both are obviously two of the top plays in terms of 100%. Overall points. It's just, how do you get to them?
I think the real side of this game for interest is on the Suns. Devin Booker, 8,700 on FanDuel, 9,100 on DK. I could take that or leave that. 7,700 for DeAndre Ayton. Feels pretty good on FanDuel. Kristaps Porzingis is out. Probably like it even more. The guy that I need to talk about most is the guy that's numero uno for me overall, being carried considerably by the price tag on FanDuel. He hasn't been good lately. He's also questionable. Ricky Rubio, 5,600 on FanDuel, 6,400 on DraftKings. His price is down dramatically. Has not been playing great as of late, but that's when I want to roster guys like this at the lull of their price, not at the peak.
Right. Yeah, the salary is really appealing if he's good to go. Basically, you've just seen his usage go down recently as Devin Booker has just taken over.
Yeah.
For the first part of the season, we were seeing when they played alongside each other, Devin Booker taking a hit, with like a 28% usage rate. Over the last month, Booker's at about 33%. It hasn't mattered who's on the floor with Booker; he's just doing it all. So that has negatively impacted Rubio. But like you said, when the salary is this cheap, and normally when the salary gets this low because someone's playing poorly, there's at least some effect on the ownership too because of recency bias. So you're just going to get someone at a cheaper price point than they should be and lower ownership than they should have at that given price point. So if Rubio's in, I think that he's someone that is worth taking shots at in tournament, just because even if, let's say from now to the end of the season, Devin Booker does keep up his usage rate, there's still going to be individual games where Rubio just has better than average games. And at his current salary, it doesn't take a lot for him to outperform it.
Absolutely. You said 2 or 3 games that would be blowing that $5,600 FanDuel price out of the water over the past 2 or 3 weeks. The good news is, if you're keeping an eye on this, we might not know it by lock, although keep in mind, this game is at 8:30, I believe, really early night tonight. If we get any news on Rubio being out, all we're doing is just creating value in some other way from, Elliot Kobo, I guess?
Yeah, who did nothing the last time Rubio was out.
Very true. But it's not just Rubio from a value perspective. Kelly Oubre is just sort of always in play for me, given his position. I think the price tags are fine. Mikal Bridges is 3,900 on DK, and to me that is kind of like one of the few actual value options that exist, sub 4. Do you have any interest in Bridges on DraftKings?
A little bit, not a ton. Dallas isn't a team that I really like attacking too much. Bridges isn't a high usage guy. He should get around 30 minutes, though, you would think. So, if he ends up in there in some lineups, it's fine, but it's not someone that I'm really excited about. I do like the salary on Oubre, who plays huge minutes. Booker, too. I think that, even at 9,100, it's pretty. He's just such a high upside player playing 38 plus minutes with 33% usage.
Favorite player from Phoenix?
On FanDuel, if he plays Rubio. On DraftKings, either Ayton or Booker.
Okay.
Probably Ayton, just because he's playing huge minutes too, and he's cheaper.
I would still have Rubio ahead of both of those guys on DK.
Yeah, I think it's fair. I don't think that's crazy.
Okay. And the love for Bridges will go away pretty dramatically if we open up any value. Hell, if Ricky Rubio sits, the love for Bridges on his own team will go away pretty dramatically by opening up Elliot Kobo.
If it opens up Elliot Kobo.
Yeah, right. 8 games up, 8 games down. We are finished. Adam, I need your top plays on DraftKings for today.
Really like Kemba. Really like Jokic. Man, value is tough to come by. Will Barton at 6,600 looks good. Troy Brown. Bridges, I guess, at 4,400, where you need value.
717 viewers, 212 likes. Let's drop a couple more on here before I go through FanDuel plays. Hit that thumbs up button. It helps us out a ton. At point guard on FanDuel, give me Ricky Rubio quite a bit. I like Luka and Darius Garland. I wouldn't have expected to say those 3 names ever. Shooting guard, Devontae Graham, Kevin Huerter, Marcus Smart. We'll also include Fred VanVleet. He's in the same sort of pack. Small forward, oddly loaded today. Very much in the middle. Gordon Hayward, Jaylen Brown, Will Barton, Troy Brown. Lots to like. Even if you want to go up to Siakam or Antetokounmpo, Kelly Oubre. I'm liking small forward on FanDuel for the first time in a while. Power forward, Daniel Tice, Michael Porter. They are my 2 priorities. And at center, I like Tristan Thompson. And if you need to pay up all the way, Nikola Jokic looking good. And that is it. That is 8 games for you guys. Thank you for joining us. We'll have a PGA show up at 2:30. Deeper dive and live before lock at their standard 5 and 6 o'clock times. Adam, anything else?
Nope.
There it is, guys. Thank you for joining us. Best of luck today. We will be back tomorrow morning.